This is gonna be a weird one, folks. Strap in. Something that always piques my interest is surrealism in video games. I love seeing weird, odd or messy, hard to comprehend concepts put into an interactable format. But a lot of the time, I see games more go for a horror, spooky approach to surrealism. Games like Yume Nikki, LSD Dream Emulator, the Mondo games that focus more on scaring you with weird, foreign and unknown elements. Now, while I think those games are good, or at least deserve some merit, I prefer to look at a side of surrealism that I don't see very often, and that's humor. I love seeing surreal humor. The kind of humor that is so ridiculous and out of this world that you can't help but just laugh at, because you can't really comprehend it any other way. There's no obvious threat or harm, so you don't really have that feeling of danger that horror games bring to you. But it's still unknown and just fucking weird. So what else can you do but laugh? Chulip is, to me, an example of surreal humor. This game was developed by Punchline back in the earlier years of the PS2. I wonder what else they developed. I think we'll get to this game later. Chulip came out in Japan in 2002 and was eventually localized in 2007, but never really sold that well. Now you can get this game on the PS3 as a PlayStation Classic. And blah blah blah, I think that's enough boring facts to prove that I know what I'm talking about. This is a weird game that I think is a good way to explore surreal humor, but I also think it's important to recognize where it succeeds and fails as a game as well. So let's just start, yeah? Alright, this is gonna be an effort to get through. We open up to a scene where a tree opens its mildly upsetting slit to reveal a face. You're gonna see a lot of this. Better get used to it now because I'm not stopping. In walks in our main character and the kid will be playing for the duration of the game. We get to choose a name for him, and while I usually like to go with the closest thing to a canon name in moments like this, the game doesn't have a default option and I couldn't find any sort of official name for the life of me. So I went with my gut and called him the first thing that popped into my mind. Laszlo. That fits this kid, right? The tree starts talking about how Laszlo fell in love at first sight, and a moment later, said love walks into the scene. Just like Laszlo, we get to name her, and she also doesn't have an official name. So this time I went with what Laszlo would probably think of her at first glance. Please. The two of them share a promise to stay together, and then go in for a kiss. Unfortunately, it's all revealed to be a dream, and our hero Laszlo wakes up to the cold reality of a moving truck. Welcome to Long Life Town, where everyone is old and at the end of their lives with absolutely zero happiness to prove it, while the few young people just don't seem to care. Regardless of age though, they're all petty as fuck. Harsh, sure, but pay attention because it's gonna be a common theme in the game. Laszlo's dad lets him explore the town while everything at home gets set up, and we actually get to meet some of the locals. And they all suck. Don't believe me? Think I'm being a little too harsh? Alright then, how about we take a look around the neighborhood? Oh look, not even 5 steps and we could already overhear some townspeople talking about how poor we are. At least they're nice when we actually talk to them. I think. Poverty is actually a thing that gets brought up in this game a lot. We start off with the title of Poor Boy, and almost everyone in town recognizes us as a poor family that just moved in. Some of them even blaming us for things because we're poor. How could I have blocked the train tracks with a boulder? I just got here, and my body is practically made of wet paper and sensitive feelings. A literal dog bark is enough to hurt me. Man, this town is the worst. I haven't found a single good thing here. The girl of our dreams comes into play, and she really lets us have it. She talks about how inexperienced we are, how we don't know anything, how poor we are. Lady, I just met you. You weren't exactly making a good first impression either. She teaches us how to kiss, and despite telling us that she won't kiss us and that she isn't interested, the game forces you into trying anyways. It goes about as well as you'd expect. Laszlo complains to his dad, who says the best way to win Please's heart is to write her a love letter. After a bit of hijinks and getting the means to actually write the letter, Laszlo gets started, and we get a good insight on the actual complex mind of the character we control.
Dear Please, I really love you, Please. I love you very much. Please give me a smoochie next time. Ooh.
Yeah, this'll work. For some reason, we can't just give her the letter directly. We have to actually take it to the mailbox. On our way there, we see... The closest thing to an antagonist we're gonna get. Kinda. We also eavesdrop on Please's parents, who talk about how she ran away from home. And that's all we're gonna get regarding her character. She ran away from home and she doesn't like that her parents fight so much. Honestly, once you've seen what the rest of the characters have to offer, you start to wonder why she's the end goal of the game. Thankfully, the love letter gets rejected by some weird voice that came out of nowhere, and we're told to meet this voice in its room, which happens to be in the manhole next to our house. This is the exact opposite of what I'd like to do. Here we meet Michio Suzuki, who's an underground resident. Underground residents are people that work on the maintenance of the world so things don't fall apart. They also teach. That's about all we're gonna get as an explanation. No telling of why some are frogs or eggplants or whatever the fuck Suzuki is. They're all just underground residents. He tells us that our letter sucks, and if we want to write a good one, we have to write from the heart. Except we shouldn't do that either because our heart is small and weak and stupid. So what we have to do is grow our heart. How do we do that? By kissing as many people as we possibly can. This is where we get our first kiss, as well as a tutorial on how to kiss. You just sit around and wait for the right moment. Though this isn't always the case. I'll get more on that later though. Apparently kissing an onion lady is so taxing for poor Laszlo that he has to sleep for the rest of the day. When we get back to Suzuki to start on that letter, we find out that his writing set has been stolen by Mr. Yamada, still angry about not getting paid for the work he's done. I'm cutting a lot of back and forth out here, so bear with me. He runs off with the writing set, intending to sell it to pay for his retirement. I don't think you can really get that much out of a stack of paper, ink, and a pen, but you do you, I guess. Well, that run doesn't really last that long, as we follow him towards the temple area where he gets jumped by 3 other teachers, all angry that they haven't been paid either. This is still the beginning of the game, folks. The 3 teachers split the writing set between themselves and run off to the 3 main areas in the game beyond Long Life Town. Mr. Inoue resides in the temple area with the love ink, Mrs. Iwata resides in Scarecrow Fields with the love pen, and Mr. Saito resides in Funny Bone City with the paper. It's just paper. You stole a stack of paper, you dumb piece of shit. And this is where the game sorta just lets us do whatever we want for the rest of the run. Laszlo's been framed for the theft, and our goal is to get the pieces of the love letter set back so we can win over Please's heart. And we can go about the set pieces in whatever order we want as well. Oh, and for the rest of the game, Yamada sorta just sulks in the sandbox and tries to figure out what happiness is because stealing something for the sake of money didn't actually make him that happy. The bottom line of the game is to kiss as many people as possible, and this will often lead to getting a piece of the letter set back as well. There's 50 kisses in the whole game, and they're split up into 2 different categories: above ground residents and underground residents. It's not just people, by the way. You kiss a lot of things around the world. Things that you probably shouldn't be putting your lips on. You kiss a turtle, a spider, a robot, a fucking sniper that shoots everything. Holy shit! Above ground residents are people with whole storylines, kinda like side quests that end with a kiss. You follow the character around while they try to discover what makes them happy, and once you help them achieve that happiness, they reward you with a big ol' smooch. This kind of quest could range from a simple task like taking a bath properly, netting you a kiss in a couple minutes, to getting your blood drained by a vampire devilman and curing his vampirism, which could take anywhere from an in-game day to weeks depending on your luck. It's not exactly easy to figure some of this stuff out either, by the way. You gotta search as hard as you can for the right hints and answers to some of this stuff. The easiest way to get hints is to use your card. You can show your card to people around the world, and they'll give you their card in return. When you show their card to other people, they'll tell you what they think of that person. A few problems with this though. Using your card once uses the entire card, meaning you have to buy a lot if you're only using that method, and you already have a limited amount of inventory space. The other problem is that you still don't exactly get the information that you need from people with this method. Sure, you get some information and ideas on what to do, but there's still a lot left pretty open and vague. Michelle here, for example. You know, the creepy lady with the evil eye that also does this. People around town tell you that she's weird and they don't like her and that you should visit her at night, but they don't tell you that you have to give her a good eggplant that you get by growing good veggie seeds in this specific plot of farmland in Scarecrow Fields, or that sometimes you just don't get good eggplants and that you have to keep trying until you do. Best way to figure this out is by using a guide. Still, despite a less than stellar way of going about some of these storylines, they're really fun. Underground residents are people like Onion Lady, who live underground and only come out in certain times of the day. A lot of times the key to kissing them is to wait for the right time, but it feels like most of them require you to do something pretty damn cryptic and vague to get that chance. For example, this train track kid requires you to lead him to different parts of the playground, where there's designated train stations of Japan written on them. I don't actually know how you're supposed to figure out what order you go in, but that isn't even the biggest problem. The biggest issue is that sometimes the solution just doesn't work. I've led him around a few times, and only after a couple tries did the game actually give me the chance to kiss him. I honestly can't tell what I'm doing wrong. Another example would be this guy right here, who dances around and makes you play a game of red light green light until you walk up to him. You can't run or walk, you have to sneak up to him at the right time, and the game really doesn't explain any of this to you at all. There's two ways I've found to figure this stuff out without using an outside source like a guide. The first way is to talk to Laszlo's dad, but that often just tells us the location of a resident and that's about it. And even if it did tell us how to get that kiss, he only tells us about one resident per day, and whatever resident he chooses is completely based on RNG. So good luck figuring things out that way. The other way is to get a hint by looking into their holes, which lets you take a peek into their lives. Often they'll give you a saying of the day that pertains to the way you get their kiss, but not always. In fact, it feels like they say a bunch of random crap more often than actual helpful information. Like going back to this guy, his hint is just weird. He sings song lyrics, and I have no idea how this relates at all to playing Stop Go once he reaches a specific part of the map. You could spend a bit of time just watching them and seeing their movements, which feels like is partly the intended way to solve these issues, but even that method doesn't always give you a clear answer. Sometimes you'll just sit there the entire time and they'll go back home without a single opening. The other issue is, good God, this game takes forever. Everyone is on their own schedule throughout the whole game, both above ground and below ground. From when they wake up, to what activities they do, to when they sleep, it's all on this clock. It's a lot like the clock in the world in Majora's Mask. And while that's really cool and makes the world feel more alive and functioning, it leaves you with a lot of waiting around. A lot of waiting around. A lot of waiting around. You gotta wait for people to do certain things, you gotta wait for the shops to open, you gotta wait for the train to arrive on schedule, and you have to wait for underground residents to come out for that day. Meaning, if you miss your chance and they go back home, you're waiting a whole 24 hours to do it again. There are ways you could speed up waiting, like reading a comic book, but not only does that comic have a chance of being a bad comic, making you lose hearts, but they also run out eventually, meaning you have to buy plenty of comics. Notice how I've been mentioning chance and luck and RNG a lot? Yeah, there's a lot of that in this. It feels like most of the game revolves around random chance. You can either find a healing item in trash cans, or an item you need to solve an issue, or you could find poop. You're gonna find poop and it's gonna damage you. There's also a lot of chance regarding underground residents. Some residents will straight up leave without a word because RNG said you don't get that chance that day. It's pretty damn annoying, and the worst of it has to be in Funny Bone Factory, where there's an underground resident that makes you look for an item with a 1% chance to appear, and then come back later to kiss him. Both times you have to see him, by the way, are also dependent on RNG, because you have to get the right chance to sneak into the area at night. This is just excessive. We don't actually need every kiss in the game. In fact, we only need a few to get the complete love letter set, but the optional kisses get us some pretty good stuff, like more save points, the ability to wake up whenever we want, and the ability to run. Or, well, waddle faster. It's more useful than it sounds, I swear. But getting back to the main story, every area has a piece of the love letter set, and the holder wants you to do something for them in return. In the temple area, Inoue wants you to replace the monk's bell with a better one, because the current one makes a horrible noise. So we help the monk out, give him some money until he gives us some incense sticks, and then after getting a very specific combination of graves, we... Okay, that wasn't even fair. That was required damage. What if I didn't have enough health for that? Ugh, whatever. We get the monk's father's bell and give it to him, and we can enjoy the sweet sound of the new bell. So much better. That was all we needed to get the love ink, but kissing the monk actually also opens up the way to kiss more people too. Afterwards, his daughter Belle becomes available. When we first meet her, she tells us to absolutely never, ever ring the big bell at the temple. See this bell? Don't ring it. Don't even think about ringing it. Pretend it's not even there. It's bad. If you think about ringing the bell, you're bad. Just don't ring the bell. You know, I don't know what happened here. So some evil bell spirits that were sealed away curse the monk, and Belle, yeah, the name gets confusing, don't worry about it, makes sense later, tells us to get some sweet potato sake for the purification ritual. Only place to get that is from Please's parents. But when we ask, they start arguing, slowly escalating until... When I jumped into this funny little game about kissing, I wasn't expecting fucking domestic abuse. So Goro gets arrested and we get the sake. That's all we need to do with them. And honestly, the less we stick around, the better. When we get the sake back to Belle, she brings us over to a shrine where she summons a fighting spirit made of charcoal. She challenges the spirit to a duel for a legendary sword, and actually wins. Though it turns out that the sword by itself isn't enough. No, what we need is the second legendary sword that we get from the reincarnation of the spirit's ashes, after we fight him in our own duel. This duel sounds pretty easy, actually. All we have to do is press the button when they say the right word, and... So we beat Charcoal's duel, eventually, and we even get a kiss out of them before helping out Belle with the ritual. The Belle spirits get exorcised out of the monk and he turns back to normal. But as a twist, we see Belle turned into... Belle. Alright, just bear with me here, okay? So, a long time ago, the Belle spirits were plentiful and causing a problem, so the monks sealed them away inside of the bell of the temple. A young Belle baby Belle was left behind, and the monk took her in as his own. For some reason he went as far as naming the kid Belle, and I can't tell if that was him being clever or an asshole. Belle obviously doesn't take this info well, and runs out in a panic. It doesn't take her long to recover though, opting to help her adopt a father in the temple, because regardless of blood relation or not, he's still her father. We're just gonna ignore the whole sealing the rest of your race thing, I guess. We get a kiss for helping her uncover the truth and find her happiness, which was helping and being with her father, thus ending the whole storyline. So that was a completely optional storyline, and like the rest of the Above Ground residents, it was a hefty one too. We don't really get much out of it aside from a nice story and the kisses that I already described. So why did I go through the whole thing? Because these sections are probably the best part of the game, at least to me, and there's quite a bit of them. Way too much for me to go over in their entirety. I wanted to go over this one and a few more, just to give you a taste and maybe an incentive on picking the game up for yourself. And they range from being hilarious to actually really sweet to just downright fucking weird and a little uncomfortable. Getting back to the main goal of the game, the next area we go to is Funny Bone City. And oh boy, this place. So we meet Mr. Saito almost right away, and he tells us that he'll give us the love paper only if we make something of ourselves and become president of Funny Bone Factory. So we have to actually get to Funny Bone Factory first, and to do that, we need to get a flyer for a job offering. Once we get that, we can take it to Batian, who's been looking for a job the entire game. We refer him to Funny Bone Factory, and we get a free tour of the factory as a reward. I actually like the little twist that happens when you give Batian the offer. You'd expect him to kiss you with how happy he is, but instead he just runs off and leaves you hanging, giving you a hint that there's much more to his happiness than a simple job. And you can clearly see that he's not happy once he starts working. In fact, no one in the factory is happy. And the entire atmosphere of the place is just so different from the rest of the game. Normally, wherever you go, the game plays this really comfy, laid back, and pleasant music. Like a fun doo-wop sort of theme that changes slightly depending on the area you're in. And it only goes away at nighttime when the energy of the town is generally gone. But in the factory and during the entire tour, you're just kinda left in this uncomfortable silence as you go through every area. As we make it through the tour, we can see how the workers feel about their job. At the start, they're all optimistic and eager to climb that corporate ladder. But in the later areas, we can see workers that have been at the job long enough to know that things aren't going to get any better, and they aren't going to get anywhere with their job. It's a pretty eerie, sobering feeling, seeing everyone just go about their jobs, hating it while feeling they have nowhere else to go. At least it feels like that the first time we go through the tour. We're gonna be going through it a lot. So one worker gives us a letter to deliver to someone in Scarecrow Fields, which happens to be a scarecrow. We can then get a secret code that will need to access a big secret huge vault in the factory, meaning we have to go through the factory again so we can hide in the middle of the tour and roam around at night. Quick aside, I like the touch of the music coming back at nighttime when you're breaking the rules and going against Funny Bone Factory. Also happens to be like one of the few times music actually plays at night. Makes it feel like things are going back to normal when you're going against the awful life of the daily grind. Once we enter the code and get to the vault, we obtain the president card, which means we're president of the company now, I guess. Why was this just in a vault? Who was the president before this? Was this place just fully automated? Anyway, we show our card to Saito and he gives us a paper. But we're not done yet. Oh no. See, if we're not following a guide, we're gonna need to go back to the factory again to get an item that we'll need later, which we get from kissing the guy with the small chance of kissing that I mentioned before. Which means we'll most likely have to come back here multiple times to keep trying to kiss him. And if we're going for 100%, we have 4 other people that we have to kiss too, often with overlapping times, meaning that we can't kiss them all in one night, meaning we have to come back here again for those kisses. I think I've done this stupid tour about 10 times before I was done. It's exhausting and tedious and I'm so sick of it. Alright, I finally got those stupid residents, I got the paper, I got everything, Funnybone City is done. Now for the ink over in Scarecrow Fields. We run into Mrs. Iwata almost immediately, and she doesn't waste any time telling us what her mission is about. She asks if we believe in aliens, and regardless of if we do or not, she doesn't believe us. So we have to kiss an alien to prove our belief, because that's how you prove it, I guess. Seriously, if we try to tell her we do believe, she hits us and accuses us of lying. So we have to find a way to kiss an alien, which there happens to be an alien crash landed on Scarecrow Fields, looking to find its way home. So how do we actually smooch him? First, you need to find 4 alien dictionaries to understand the alien. You get 1 from kissing the frog, 1 from kissing the RNG guy in front of one factory, 1 from buying in a shop, and 1 from chewing gum at the crack in the wall behind a police station at 5 PM when the bell chimes. Then you have to go to the big monkey statue in Scarecrow Fields to show it all the dictionaries and then memorize all the words it gives you. Then you talk to the alien and translate what it's saying using all the words you learn from the statue. Then you give the alien a refrigerator, a frying pan, and a computer, which you have to get from the trash cans and the antique shop. After you give him his junk, buy some funny cola and fall in with the tower and use the funny cola on the machine. Then you have to put in the pattern that you learn by getting star seeds and planting them in this specific plot of land and memorizing the combination of flowers that sprout. Then you want the alien to get picked up by his friends and reveal that he's actually a weird monkey thing and then finally kiss him. And that's all you gotta do. Simple, right? Really though, how the hell were you supposed to figure any of this stuff out by yourself? It's bad enough that you had to figure out where the dictionaries are, let alone getting them, but then you have to actually memorize the words for yourself. And they're completely disconnected and not related at all. At the very least, you don't need them if you're following a guide, but if you aren't, you're stuck kissing as many people as possible in hopes of finding the dictionaries and remembering the translations. And that's just to understand the alien. I have no idea how you're supposed to just know that Funny Cola works on his machine. And god, you better hope you didn't buy a lot of stuff in the game and only bought essentials, because that computer is not cheap. It took pretty much all the money I've been saving for the whole game to afford it, so you better not get tempted by that infinite train pass or all those healing items, or you're gonna be stuck sifting through even more trash cans to get some items to sell for money. So after kissing the alien, Mrs. Iwata sort of just believes us and gives us the love ink. That's the last item we need for the finale of the game, but there's still tons of kisses to get for the sake of completion. I mean, come on, there's like 50 kisses in total, and we barely need any of them to actually get through the whole game. There has to be something special in store for us if we get all of them. Plus, there's still some really nice stories around too, like Zombie Girl Mika. You find her spirit in the cemetery at night, and every time you do, she invites you to join her for some tea. The tea is... it's okay. But what's even better than the tea is the story she tells you during the tea party. She tells you about her time when she was alive, when she was a love-struck schoolgirl learning about tea and getting into the hobby of tea making because of her boyfriend, who loved her skills. But before they could graduate, Mika died in a car accident, coming back as this lonely zombie girl that slowly begins to deteriorate with every visit we pay her at night. She eventually starts losing her memories, the last thing left on her mind being her boyfriend, wishing to see him enjoy her tea one more time. You can take her eye and collect the items needed to make her special tea, then bring it over to Leo, her boyfriend that went on still remembering her. He makes the tea, we're just gonna ignore how he makes it, and he's so happy and nostalgic that he tells us more about her. It's clear that he misses her and still thinks about her a lot, and he's happy to enjoy her tea again. Going back to Mika with her eye lets her see her boyfriend enjoying her tea, making her so happy that she gives us a kiss before moving on, satisfied with making her love happy one more time. I'm not crying, you're crying. Tears aside, that was one of my favorite stories in the game, but that's hardly the last one. There's a lot left. We can kiss a police officer in Long Lifetown by getting arrested, meaning we had to smoke, steal, and just sit there and be naked overnight. We can break the law even further by breaking Goro out of jail and kiss his wife right in front of him. We have this 20-year-old guy, yes, that's actually his name, who we kissed by walking past him 50 times, and so much more. And what do we get for kissing every single character in the game? Nothing. Absolutely nothing! I thought we could get a secret ending by inviting our crush to the Lover's Tree early, but she just slaps us for a lot of damage. The only thing you kind of get as a reward is 99 hearts. But kissing every single person in the game means you've already solved all their problems, and there's nothing you can get hurt by after that. So there's really no point at all to getting 100% in the game. All those hours going through Funnybone Factory were for nothing! Let's just finish the game. So after we hand in the letter set, we're forced into the next day, where we can finally write the good love letter. Then all we have to do is hand it in. What, you thought you just send her the letter like a normal person? What are you, stupid? No, we had to send it to the mailbox in her heart, obviously. How do we do that? What, do I have to spell everything out for you? Pay attention. We clearly have to go down into the depths along Lifetown through the sandbox where Yamato was pacing the entire time, in which he was actually digging the way there so we can get to our crush's heart, as part of an entire elaborate plot thought up by our father, who turns out to have been the principal of all the underground teachers the entire time. Yep. Seriously though, Dad, was this really all part of a way to make me grow into a man? I got shocked by lightning. I became president of a company. I kissed an alien, Dad. I'm like 16. Ignoring our father's horrible method of teaching life lessons, we jump into the depths where things get a little much. This place feels almost a little eerie to walk through. Maybe it's a combination of oddly somber music along with the dark colors. What's this place supposed to be anyways? I'm pretty sure this is something along the lines of Please's psyche. We see her dad, mom, and cat here, so I assume that's what this is. We have to complete little challenges to get further into the depths, like find her dad's head because he drank too much and lost it. Well, this one isn't so hard. We see his head a lot throughout the game, so this shouldn't be that bad. Then we have to save Please's mom for getting tried for murder in a chicken court because she cooks chickens. Is Please okay? The trial itself is pretty bold too. You have to choose the right citizens, who are the only citizens that like her cooking because apparently her cooking is just that bad. The only way you figure this out is by asking around via cards beforehand, which is fine I guess, but the fact that you have to choose the ones that actually like her cooking because her cooking is bad is just really confusing. You know, maybe I shouldn't be trying to make sense of this considering this also happens before the trial. The last challenge is probably the most bullshit. You're confronted by your crush's cat, who challenges you to a 20 questions dead or alive challenge, where you just have to answer a bunch of questions. Most of them are things that you learn via trading cards with people, but the fact that you have to memorize each detail just in case it turns out to be a question is really dumb, especially if you're playing the game for the first time and you don't know this sort of challenge is coming up. And there's a lot of people in the game that tell you useless details that don't mean anything. And what about the Laszlo questions? How the hell am I supposed to know how much I weigh? Once we ace the quiz, totally without a guide or anything, we finally make it to the mailbox of Please's heart, and we see just what the perfect letter looks like. Dear Miss Please, you are the best. Not in Wangwife Town, not in the world, but in the universe. I love you. Love, Laszlo. Ooh. And then the fucking hand of God snatches us from the ceiling and takes us to the kissing tree. We're just gonna leave that? We're not gonna... Alright, fine. At the kissing tree, the teachers and the principal discuss what it really means to be happy, and how hard it could be to find that happiness. Some people go their whole lives looking for it, while other people can find themselves both happy and unhappy at the same time. Other times you might get moments of happiness before needing to go out and look again. Regardless of where you are in that search, it's okay to take a break and find peace with where you are at that moment. The principal assures himself that at this time, at this moment, Laszlo can enjoy a little bit of happiness. At least for a while. They all start hiding once Laszlo enters the scene, and things start to play out just as Laszlo had dreamt at the beginning of the game. Please and Laszlo both swear to be together through trials and tribulations, and then they share a kiss. And that's all there is to the game. Once you get that last kiss, there's nothing else to really do. We go right into the credits, and then we're all done with the game. And honestly, I'm kinda glad. I don't think I'll be going back anytime soon, at least not with full completion in mind. I find myself having a bit of trouble trying to come up with final thoughts on Chulip, because I have so many conflicting feelings on it. The game has this fun, laid back, and just odd vibe to it that fascinated me, kept me in, and kept me hooked with its music and weird visuals. But at the same time, the way you go about solving problems and progressing in the game can range from generally alright and pleasant to tedious and cryptic as all hell. I feel like some of the cryptic and unhelpful hints are more of a translation issue rather than a fault of the game itself, but it's still annoying to deal with. I think if anything, I would say this is a fun game to go through in a specific way. That way being if you had a guide with you and if you aren't going for every kiss in the game. Going through everything and trying to figure it all out was an absolute pain. And the charm of how weird things wore off pretty fast in those moments where I had to wait around for hours just to have another shot at a thing because I was unlucky. What made things worse was when I got every kiss in the game and I realized it was all for pretty much nothing. Have a guide ready, and don't worry about fully completing the game. The fun little side stories and wacky main plot are definitely worth your time, while everything else is better left ignored or avoided. See, this is where I try to come up with a comfy and fun way to close the video, but I got nothing. The whole message of the game is to find out what makes you happy at your pace and do that, even if it's only for a little while. The game did just that for me. Go find something that makes you happy or something. Or don't. You don't have to right now. It's not a race. So have you got the goods? Been wondering if your heart's still open, and if so, I wanna know what time it shuts. Settle down and pucker up. I'm sorry to interrupt, it's just I'm constantly on the cusp of trying to kiss you. I don't know if you feel the same as I do, but we could be together if you wanted to. Do I wanna know if this feeling flows both ways? Sad to see.